Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Today we're going to be jumping into some Warhammer 40k stuff. This was a video requested by one of my YouTube members by Pancreas No Work. I'm not familiar with the work. I haven't seen any of their videos, so this will be a new one for me. But this is a video why the Imperium's technology is so backwards. So interested to check this video out. I've had a lot of my own ideas and kind of discussions in some of the videos about the technology in the Imperium, and I always find it interesting, the idea of essentially, humanity, just the idea of having lost civilizations is always fascinating to me. And the idea of that these lost civilizations were even more advanced in some ways, technologically or other, than where we currently are. And that's kind of what the 40k universe is. Humanity at one point in time was at the peak of technology, even beyond what the Eldar were capable of at some point in time. So the idea that a lot of that technology and information was lost and they're kind of trying to recover it, I just find that a very fascinating aspect of the 40k universe. So I'm interested to see what this video gets into as far as stuff like that goes. So as always, links will be down below in the description to this original video of Pancreas No Work and his channel. So please do me a favor, click those links, check out this video of his. If you like it, give it a like. Check out his channel if you like his content. Give the man a sub, as he makes some content here. Definitely deserves some love. But yeah, so we're gonna check this out. Why the Imperium's technology is so backwards. Let's get into it here. Volume, let's go.
Mankind's tech in 40k is a bit scuffed, wouldn't you say? Accidental rhyming aside, they used to have all sorts of nifty things like weaponized teleportation.
What is this music from? I know this is very sidetracked, but I know this music is from a game. I'm trying to think of what game it is. It's messing with my mind. Well, let me hear some more, maybe it'll come to me.
Yeah, and other cool sci-fi stuff like that. Now, they have pretty much none of that. The only people that likely have that kind of stuff are the Custodes, who keep it locked away in the Emperor's basement for safety reasons, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, who have it in the same way I technically have a pen.
It's distracting me from this video, this game music, and trying to think of what game it comes from. I can picture in my head, but I can't think of it. Oh, what is it? It's a good game too. Anyway, let me just rewind this and start from the beginning again, because that's distracting me.
Mankind's tech in 40k is a bit scuffed, wouldn't you say? Accidental rhyming aside, they used to have all sorts of nifty things like weaponized teleportation, all-knowing AI, and other cool sci-fi stuff like that. Now, they have pretty much none of that. The only people that likely have that kind of stuff are the Custodes, who keep it locked away in the Emperor's basement for safety reasons.
I could be wrong, but I think it might be the first Risk of Rain game. I don't know. It's from some game. I'll figure it out at some point, but yeah, it's messing with my brain because I want to think. I want to know what game it is. But anyway, I keep restarting the video here. I apologize, everyone.
Teleportation, all-knowing AI, and other cool sci-fi stuff like that. Now, they have pretty much none of that. The only people that likely have that kind of stuff are the Custodes.
Yeah, the Custodes.
In the Emperor's space.
Yeah, the Custodes have all the goodies. They seem to be the ones, the guardians of anything that was left over from the Emperor when he was playing with stuff. And I mean, they obviously still have the ability to create Custodes, which is a secret that I guess only a few of them know. And that the Emperor did. So faster than light, that's what it is. Bam, that's exactly what it is. It's faster than light. I knew it was some kind of a space game. Faster than light. Yeah. Dude, Faster Than Light's a great game, by the way. I'm sad that they never made a second Faster Than Light, but I love Faster Than Light. Great game. Anyway. Dark Angels, yeah.
Have pretty much none of that. The only people that likely have that kind of stuff are the Custodes, who keep it locked away in the Emperor's basement for safety reasons, and the Adeptus Mechanicus, who have it in the same way I technically have a pancreas. It's there somewhere, yeah, but I don't use it, and neither do they. The technology or my pancreas either works. And the reasons for this are many. Some of them self-inflicted, some of them actually valid for the safety of mankind. Why don't we see why the Cogboys don't invent new stuff, or entrust what they have to literally anyone? Let's go through the reasons that are the Mechanicus' own fault first. They're much less interesting to talk about since A, a lot of people already know them, and B, I address these points in my Mechanicus do or don't, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. If I flub the releases of those videos and this comes out beforehand, then my apologies, but it'll make a bit more sense when that comes out. You'll accuse me of running out of ideas either way, which is true, but shut up. But before I go on, I should tell you that this video is sponsored by
NordVPN.
NordVPN. Internet privacy is no joke. There's no sense beating around the bush.
This is kind of a long ad. He's sponsored by NordVPN. Go check out his stuff. We're gonna skip ahead of this due to the for this video because I don't want to sit here for several minutes listening to this ad. But go check out his channel, NordVPN. Support him, all that stuff.
Now, back to talking about technology. First off, a lot of Imperial tech is backwards because Mechanicus doesn't let anyone use it. And one of the reasons for that is pretty self-explanatory if you think about it. If you have a super weapon capable of making a star system explode and the other guy doesn't, you have a leg up on him.
Yep.
If you both have it, you're on equal footing.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense that the Mechanicus would keep some secrets to themselves in case something happens and the Imperium turns on them, or they ever come at odds, They do kind of would want to keep the things like that for themselves.
Therefore, the Mechanicus sometimes doesn't share shit purely to be selfish and lord power over others. It's 40k. If the idea of someone acting purely for their own gain bothers you, then I don't know how you ended up being a fan of this setting. The other reason that it's the Mechanicus' own fault is they ban innovation. Officially, anyways. Plenty of tech priests of all ranks try to fly under the radar with that kind of stuff. Getting caught usually results in
unless you're Brother Sarius, then you can do whatever you want.
Demotion to lobotomite or death, but that's just the price you pay. The reasoning essentially boils down to ancient mankind already discovered all we needed to know. They just had the wrong idea about stuff like worshipping your light bulb. Therefore, there should be no need to invent new tech, but instead you should always look for what's lost because it's proven to be better than anything we have nowadays. If you don't do that and get the mad idea in your head that you know better than your predecessors, then to put it in the most polite terms possible, you can eat shit and die. While the Mechanicus doesn't come down at some primitive world because some caveman there invented fire, if you do some real future science, you're in trouble. But in saying that last one is a self-imposed reason for bad technology, there's more to it than just that. That's certainly a big part of the reason, don't get me wrong. There are without a doubt cases where research that damn well may save the Imperium is halted for no better reason than new stuff bad, old stuff good. But there's something very important to consider, why that reason exists. Why exactly the Mechanicus hates when you develop something new instead of finding something old to replicate.
Well, I feel like it's also a situation where they're afraid, again, that it could become corrupted, right? Like, I feel like if they find a relic from the past that hasn't been corrupted and still works, and they can base things off of it, that they can, with relatively safe, it's relatively safe for them to say that, okay, this works and it's, safe from corruption. Whereas if they make something new and then it gets corrupted, then it's like, whoops, we made bad thing, it's our fault, that kind of a situation. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it.
Because it sure as hell isn't because the Mechanicus hates technology that's better than what they got. If that was the case, then the Mechanicus wouldn't be digging through every planet they can find hoping to find a USB stick that contains all the knowledge in the universe. No, the reason they hate people inventing new things, and indeed at least part of the reason they refuse to share so much of what they do have, is because of the fundamental way technology works in 40k. Have you ever had a flash of inspiration? Maybe you were working on a school essay and got stumped for a while, when all of a sudden the perfect idea comes.
Yeah, and that is another case because the idea, you get inspired of an idea to make something. Who says it wasn't given to you by one of the Chaos Gods? Who says Tzeentch didn't give you this idea and it leads to some kind of crazy, thing that opens dimensional portals for demons to pour through, or becomes some kind of thing that a demon spirit can, inherit and become a host to and do all kinds of crazy shit. You know what I mean?
Comes to you when you finish the paper in moments. Maybe you have a problem at work when all of a sudden everything just lines up and it's solved immediately. Or maybe you're the author of some absolutely horrendous smut like Squad Broken, and like divine providence striking you, you come up with the absolute best way of describing someone's balls. See, the thing about that in 40k is that sometimes those flashes of inspiration are actually divinely inspired. There actually is a deity plugging knowledge into your brain so you can put it into work in whatever way you need. The problem is that in this setting, the gods that usually do that are not the nicest folks around. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably what gave us Squad Broken in the first place. Let's run through a scenario. You're a tech priest who's just had a long day of work. Despite the fact that you shouldn't be inventing new stuff, you feel like your research is on the cusp of success, but you just can't quite figure out what you're missing. Right now, though, all you want to do is go back to your quarters and sleep. Or depending on how augmented you are, go into sleep mode. Upon waking, or rebooting as it were, you awake with the perfect solution. It's almost as if something whispered it into the back of your mind while you rested. Furthermore, let's say your research...
does that mean, if you're one of the Mechanicus guys, do they even have an IT? Like, is IT a thing in the Mechanicus? You know what I mean? Is it a situation where, oh my god, Jim, he's dying, just turn him off and on again. You know what I'm saying? Like if Belisarius is cool, starts having a malfunction, you know, some kind of issues, you just turn them off and on again, and then they work. You know, is that like the primary fix for Mechanicus issues? You know.
Research involves making a new kind of grenade, one that packs backifying or rebooting, as it were. You awake with the perfect solution. It's almost as if something whispered it into the back of your mind while you rested. Furthermore, let's say your research involves making a new kind of grenade, one that packs all the power of a Baneblade shell into a nice and portable container. That'll give the Tau some pause for thought when they see some random guardsman casually send a bunker straight to EBDB. You fervently go to work and finish your project. You go to test it, and surprise! Upon pulling the pin, you've just created a portal to the warp, and demons eat you and everyone around you. Turns out a voice actually did whisper that knowledge into your brain, and that voice was Tzeentch having a laugh. Part of what makes development so dangerous is that gods and demons actively screw around with the mortal world, and whispering sweet nothings into some researcher's ear is a perfect way to get some low-effort, high-reward dickery done. Hell, you might do something like that on accident, and the Mechanicus doesn't want to risk accidental chaos corruption because someone decided to upgrade their Lehman Russ a bit. If nothing else,
I do also feel like part of it is the Mechanicus is kind of afraid that they're going to get blamed for stuff, and they don't want to be like on the bad side of Imperium stuff because of what happened with the Dark Mechanicus and them, you know, losing autonomy, you know, from the Imperium. Like after the Dark Mechanicus happened in the Heresy, then the Imperium was like, okay, we're going to put some restrictions and oversight on you. And they don't want to have more restrictions and oversight put on them. So they're like very cautious about creating new stuff as well because of that. Unless you're Belisarius and then you just do whatever you want.
else, there's only so much that the Inquisition is willing to let them get away with. Of course, there's plenty of other reasons as well. Mankind has lost a great deal of its technology, to the point that even finding a perfectly functioning warship or something like that isn't the end of the challenge, because you probably have no idea how to actually use the thing. And even if—
yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, is they don't want to lose more autonomy to the Imperium and have more oversight, which then also would give the Imperium more access to some of their secrets, which then the Imperium might also still be like, hey, you've been keeping us for this shit from us, you know, what are you doing here, brother? Yeah. So, and that could eventually happen too, if more things like that happen. I feel like eventually the Imperium would just absorb them in there, and they would just be forced to become part of the Imperium, and they would lose their religion and their rights as well.
And if you do know how to use it, you definitely don't know how it works. Let's go through another scenario. I may or may not make up several of these as I go, because they're an easy way to demonstrate I almost know what I'm talking about. If the scenario sounds familiar to you, it's because I'm ripping it off of the 1D4chan page on the Mechanicus. So if you'd like to read instead of listen, go there. Let's say you work at a power plant that's largely run by AI. Simple. You probably don't know how it works, but you know enough to do your job. Right. Then one day your superiors come to you and say, now build another one. How the fuck are you going to do that? You don't know how to generate power and maintain the machines and the infrastructure and the several other—
I'm just here to hit buttons, dude. You know what I'm saying? The AI does the work. Tell the AI what to do. I just hit buttons. I look at knob. When knob go this way, I say bad. When knob stays this way, good. That's all I do.
Other things that would require a whole team of people to do. But let's say you do now. You find a genie in the bottle, and instead of wishing for something cool like money, world peace, or a stand, you magically know everything about your power plant. You can build a new one now, right? No, you still can, because building it requires all sorts of technological prowess and machines and whatnot that you don't have access to. That's another fundamental problem with the Mechanicus' use of technology. Even if they had all the knowledge of how it works, they still can't use it because it requires access to Y thing.
Well, yeah, and also resources, right? Like a lot of the stuff from the dark age of technology, a lot of that stuff during that time, humanity was able to just replicate resources. So like resources weren't an issue, actual material to make stuff. And a lot of the stuff that technology was made from is very rare and hard to find nowadays. So that's another issue as well. Yeah, it's why, this is why it's frustrating when I see people who say they could remake old tech if they really tried. It's not realistic to forget how tech works. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, too, is it's like, okay. Just take me, for example. I worked in IT for 15 years, right? You know, I know how to troubleshoot and fix stuff with computers and how they're put together, and, you know, I can build a computer blindfolded, honestly. I really probably could install Windows, get everything up and working. in honestly less than probably like 30 minutes nowadays, depending on how good the computer is. I could build it, get together, get Windows installed in probably less than 30 minutes. Easy, honestly. I couldn't tell you what the different parts on the motherboard do, what the different circuit breakers do. I couldn't really tell you how to put together and build the actual video card itself and what makes you know, the different parts of the circuitry work. Like if we were to, you know, ever get to a point where, you know, World War III happens and all of a sudden we can't manufacture circuits anymore, like I couldn't sit there and take circuitry from another part of a broken motherboard and try to solder it on to another broken motherboard in order to make one, you know, motherboard work. Like I couldn't do that. And that's how technology is. Like we don't know, you know, exactly, like unless you're an engineer that actually builds a car or something like that, you don't know what I couldn't tell you what the individual parts of a car are and what necessarily they do and how to put them together to build an entirely new car. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't tell you how to do all that. There's even like basic stuff. Like, I don't know how to make cheese. I don't know how to make butter. You know what I mean? Like basic stuff like that for like food and like survival. Like how many things do we like take for granted that are like just basic necessities that we have all the time, that it's like, I don't know how to make that shit. You know what I mean? Right, exactly. You might know how to make a car. You may know how to take apart a car, but building from scratch. Yeah, exactly. Forging all the materials. Yeah. Working as a supervisor in a warehouse, I confirm that even workers barely know how the shit works. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's like, if something were to happen, you know, and we were to go back to kind of like the Stone Age, like let's say like literally right now, a massive solar flare hits the planet and all technology is destroyed. We're all humanity has the current knowledge that it currently has, but just our technology is wiped out. Like it'll take time, like probably years, even decades, to get back to where we currently are, to rebuild our infrastructure. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, and some of that information and technology would be lost. Like, you know, and I mean, you think about it too, is like a lot of these nuclear power plants are run on technology from like the 70s, and there's people out here now that don't even know how a lot of that stuff works. Like the interfaces on these computers are so old and outdated that a lot of these people that created are having to start to like teach classes to get people, you know, new generations of people up to date on how this shit works. You know what I mean? Take a relatively form or super complicated readings of a manual, either binary or high Gothic, right? Part of the reason one of your messages here didn't go through, it's part of the reason the tech priests became what they are. During the Dark Age, mechanics who fixed the life support systems underground on Mars slowly turned instruction manuals into religion. Right. They're the only ones who knew how to work stuff, and the religion formed around them. Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, to sit there and say that it's impossible, like, it's very possible. Very possible and very easy for that stuff to happen.
If they had all the knowledge of how X thing works, they still can't use it because it requires access to Y thing, and the knowledge of how to build Y thing is not only lost, but itself also requires Z thing. So just start dicking around instead, right? If you find a perfectly intact piece of machinery, then just take it apart and rebuild it. Fine idea, bozo. Why don't you take...
Well, I mean, then you're getting into other things, because it's like... Again, let's say humanity ends up in a situation where some kind of natural cataclysm happens. You know, a meteorite hits the Earth, and our population of humanity is reduced, you know, down to maybe a few thousand people. You know, maybe there's 10,000 people left in the world, you know, and then generations and generations go by, and a lot of the stuff we know nowadays could potentially turn to myth or legend. But let's just say, you know, that happens, and generations down the line, people get to what would be an old nuclear weapons storage facility, and they see an atomic bomb, and they just start dicking around with it, not knowing exactly what it is, and they set it off. You know what I mean? Like, what seems something that could be completely harmless, you play around with it in a certain way, could actually have cataclysmic consequences, right? Another thing I hear a lot of people say is, "Oh, just take the Titan apart and figure out how it works." I'm like, yeah, let's just figure out how the Titan works. Let's just take apart this giant piece of technology and or back engineer it. Like, I mean, yeah.
Apart whatever you're watching this on and rebuild it from scratch. You ripped it apart, surely you know how to make a new one now, right? Maybe you're thinking, but I'm not trained in how to build phones or computers, dumbass. If I was a future scientist priest guy, I'd surely be able to. Fair enough, but the issue's still the same. The Mechanicus aren't trained in that kind of stuff because no one is anymore. Plus, if you only have one of that thing and in trying to figure it out you break it, you now have zero of that thing and your superiors are probably going to be angry with you, to say the least. Best to just
Again, like, it goes back to what I was saying. Like, some of the older computer technologies that run a lot of stuff that are very complicated to upgrade, like nuclear facilities or stuff at like NASA and a lot of like the old space stuff. That's like, that stuff is like written in Pascal, and there's a handful of people left in the world that understand that computer language. You know what I mean? That's where the issues start to become a problem. Because it's like, there's only a handful of people that know it, and if they don't know it, then you can't really play with it. Like, you don't want to sit there and dick around with stuff at a nuclear reactor and not know what you're doing, you know? That's how you get Chernobyl. Well, I mean, look at Dune Strider mechs the Mechanicus have. One tech priest knew how they worked, and he died, so now they're afraid to turn them off. You're right, exactly. Yeah, I remember that story. Because they can't figure them out. So if they turn them off, they're afraid they're not going to be able to turn them back on again.
just leave it alone and maybe use it if the situation desperately calls for it. Even if they can figure it out, let's go back to the power plant situation. You somehow managed to build this thing perfectly from scratch and it works like a charm. Great. Now upgrade it. If you built one, you can surely upgrade one, yeah? Well, maybe. Best case scenario, you double your power output. Worst case scenario, whatever city you've been powering goes up in smoke. What'll probably end up happening is you just screw around with different things and the end result is largely a waste of time, likely only slightly more or slightly less efficient than what you started out with. With that in mind, why bother with it? The risk of breaking something or causing some absolutely catastrophic meltdown is too great. So even when they find something intact, it's usually best to learn only the bare minimum to keep it running. It's just accept that unless you find another copy, this is all you have. To say nothing of how dangerous it can be to dick around with this kind of thing, even when it does work perfectly. The Men of Iron are the simplest example of what happens when in the Mechanicus' eyes you go too far. If you make AI, they're gonna rebel eventually. You might say, just fix the problem for next time and you'll be good. Yeah, man, just fix the problem. That's some real middle management brilliance right there. No one in the Mechanicus knows.
Just fix the problem, forehead. That's fine. Yeah.
For certain why the Men of Iron rebelled. And while the Mechanicus might be able to fix the problem, a robot apocalypse isn't something you want to gamble a dice roll on. Besides, humanity in 40k already went through one AI rebellion. No one wants a second one, and building more AI makes that.
Well, and the thing is, too, is it's pretty much known that, like, that AI rebellion happened because of chaos corruption. So it's like, how do you fix chaos corruption other than destroying chaos? You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty likely that even if you created new AI, at some point in time, chaos will be able to get in there and corrupt it, and the same thing will happen again. And maybe you'll even make AI that's even better at killing this time than you did before, you know?
Set a possibility. Even at quote-unquote lower levels of technology, there's still this danger. When I don't understand how a program on a computer works, I can click around and see what happens until I figure it out. If I'm a Mechanicus adept and try to do that with some long-forgotten superweapon I found in a trash can, I'm going to vaporize a Forge World by mistake. That, incidentally, is also why the Mechanicus doesn't share nearly half of what they find and make. While selfishness and wanting more power are undoubtedly parts of it, another part is that if they can't figure out how something works, then some random space marine sure as shit isn't going to be able to, and is also just going to end up causing more problems as well. And as much as hoarding things to keep it safe in case someone
just fix it,
forehead, is a selfish reason, it's a reason that is justified often enough that no one calls them out on it. Even if you do figure out how to mass produce and recreate your planet-destroying laser to give to everyone, it just takes one guard regiment deciding corn isn't fashion this season and you just lost yourself a sector. To say nothing of whether or not whatever you're building is worth building regardless of how great it is in theory. The Necrons have that.
Plus, again, like I said, another issue is just resources themselves. A lot of these things take resources that aren't readily available for them anymore. Like back during the dark age of technology when humanity was at its peak, resources weren't an issue. They could replicate things, right? They could just make things, turn energy into matter however they wanted to, and make a lot of the stuff. That's part of what the SCPs did. But that's not something that can be done.
Funny button that can destroy any star in the galaxy, and they understand how it works perfectly. Except they never use it, because if they either use it on the wrong star or used it too often, it could cause a chain reaction of supernovas and wipe out the galaxy. If the Necrons say a piece of technology can go too far, maybe it's best to listen to them on this kind of thing. There's one...
That's one time you listen to a Necron. If the Necron's like, hey man, we don't even want to fuck with that, then you gotta be like, alright, maybe we shouldn't fuck with that. You know what I'm saying? If the Necrons are telling you it's too dangerous, you should probably listen to them.
Final potential solution you might think would work, and that's to take a planet at a level of technology where the Mechanicus...
Right, exactly. Any resources you can pull to where this are resources taken from active war zones. Right. Well, and the thing is, too, is it's like, again, back during the dark age of technology, resources weren't quite as finite as they are now. So it's like you have to, in order to allocate resources to something, you have to really have a good reinsurance that you know what it is you're making and what those resources are going to, and that it's going to have a positive effect for the Mechanicus and the Imperium. And if you can't really guarantee that, you aren't going to get those resources, brother. Like, that's just how it be. Yeah, Mechanicus would get beep, boop, shut up, loser, and pushing the button. Right.
Final potential solution you might think would work, and that's to take a planet at a level of technology where the Mechanicus can safely say they know how everything on it works, completely isolate it, and wait for whatever they develop to come out so they can reproduce it. Let's say it's at roughly our level of technology, because despite what you might think, the Mechanicus perfectly understands science as we know it today. You could even plaster the whole thing in holy wards, so no demons can do just a smidgen of trolling and ruin the development. In theory, this would be the perfect way to get some technology back. The problem is time. For the sake of simplicity, humanity in 40k took about 20,000 years from modern times to the future to reach the peak of the dark age of technology. It might be a few thousand years more or less, but 20k is nice and even, so let's go with that. That's a long time even by 40k standards, where a decade may as well be a day. The Imperium doesn't have 20,000 years to just wait and see what happens. The Mechanicus rapidly searches for lost pieces of technology because they can't afford to wait. They don't need a solution to their problems within the next 5 seconds.
Yeah, there really was kind of like a Goldilocks time period for humanity there, where the Eldar were like kind of doing their own thing and keeping to themselves. And the orcs were kind of doing the same thing. They were busy just kind of fighting themselves and weren't really spreading through the galaxy at the time. And so humanity really just had like no restrictions to go out and spread throughout the galaxy. And in doing so, our technology got to this multiplicative state where we just kept advancing at such a rapid rate that we overtook them, you know? Plus, I mean, like, again, if the Eldar hadn't really gotten into being more concerned with, you know, pleasure and finding things and ways to enhance their senses and getting into stuff like that, who knows where they would have gotten to, you know, where the technology would have gone, and they could have easily been the things that took over the galaxy, you know, with the Necrons sleeping. Yeah, plus the Necrons were asleep, exactly. Right, and the Tau weren't even a thing yet. You know, so
centuries, they need one in the next 5 minutes. Wait and see what happens. The Mechanicus rapidly searches for lost pieces of technology because they can't afford to wait. They don't need a solution to their problems within the next 5 centuries. They need one in the next 5 minutes. Taking a break means devoting resources away from the orcs, chaos, and all sorts of other nasties, and to keep itself from collapsing, the Imperium can't afford to do so. And even in the perfect scenario where this thing is allowed to happen, once other factions like Chaos find out what the Imperium is doing, they're going to send all they can to stop it. There's a few other miscellaneous things I want to go over really quickly. One, the Leagues of Votan. After all, they seem to be doing pretty well with themselves and their almost archaeotech. Well, that's true, they have a whole history and culture entirely separate from the Imperium. Just copy and pasting what worked for them would cause a whole lot of upheaval, to say nothing of whether it would even work after 10k years of divergent development and the Leagues not exactly being open with their secrets. The Leagues have also lost the ability to make some of the higher end stuff themselves, like the Votan they so desperately need to keep themselves afloat, so in many ways they're not that different from the Imperium and the Mechanicus. They're really just at a different stage of technological regression. Same thing goes for trying to reverse engineer Necron tech, with the added bonus of them being even less likely to share with you than the squats, because at least the squats are willing to do some ultra capitalism. What the hell are you going to trade a Necron for his stuff? Your skin that you planned on flaying from your body anyways? As for why they don't use STCs more often to boost themselves up, those being the stuff that lets the Imperium mass produce ancient goodies, that's just an issue of time again. Parts may have been destroyed, Chaos might have tampered with it in the interim, so whatever you build just ends up with another demon grenade, and if nothing else, it's been 10,000 years since the damn thing has seen the sun. It might have just degraded to the point of near uselessness, and even if it hasn't, everything else I've said still applies here. As for the Mechanicus being overly dogmatic and unreasonable about this stuff, they're really not. They're scientists, they're just fully aware of the batshit insane setting that they live in. A galaxy where demons are very much real and are happy to meddle in whatever affairs they can. Where damn near everything beyond a light switch they make has AI fragments, or actual spirits of machines inside of them that need to be pleased. For every example of tech heresy needlessly holding the Imperium back, there's an example of a tech priest being torn apart by what he created because he didn't listen to his supervisors telling him that caution is key. The Mechanicus worship a machine god. They're very much fans of rationalism and all that good stuff.
Yeah, they wouldn't
for
be.
lack of a better way to put it, they're very genre savvy about the setting that they live in. 40k isn't miserable because everyone in it is an idiot. Everyone in it is an idiot because reason got shot when it tried to walk through the front door, and being a lunatic is all that's left. Jamming their souls into a ghost robot is the Eldar equivalent of the afterlife. Why would humanity have it any better? And even if you still think the Mechanicus are unreasonable after all this, there's two things I'd like to say to that. One is that 40k is misery poor in the setting, and it's just kinda how it works. Bit weak of a reason, I know, but that's how it is. The galaxy wouldn't be nearly as fun if everyone in it wasn't an asshole. The other is that if you lived in this galaxy, wouldn't you be a bit unreasonable? Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the STC to my mechanic.
You kind of have to be unreasonable in order to survive it. Like, in that setting, it really is like survival of the fittest. Like 40k really is like survival of the fittest, like taken to the next level. And like, it really is, you got to do what you got to do to survive. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty much just it. That's the end of the video. So, I mean, good video. And I mean, a lot of the explanations really are pretty logical. The one thing you didn't get into, and I mean, this is just from my own ideas and speculations from the Mechanicus, but I feel like it's pretty logical. You know, like, again, before the Horus Heresy, the Adeptus Mechanicus were just the Mechanicus. They were their own thing. They were given autonomy, essentially, by the Emperor to kind of do their own thing. And they just had an alliance with the Imperium to help, you know, forge their weapons and tanks and all that kind of stuff, because they had the capabilities of doing that. And at the time, you know, after the Unification Wars, you know, they didn't want to get into another prolonged fight with the Mechanicus, because who knows what it would have turned out to. But then after the Horus Heresy and the Dark Mechanicus happened and all that stuff, they became the Adeptus Mechanicus and fell in line with part of the political wings of the Imperium, and now have a lot more oversight. And so again, I feel like one of the major things that they don't want to have happen is to be at fault for another major catastrophe and lose more autonomy to the Imperium. So I do think that is a big factor. Yeah, having the Botan, who have nearly intact STCs, have found out after all this time they're starting to run super slow. They have 1 billion tabs over in 1,000 years, right? Yeah, they got to close a lot of those Google tabs. Yeah, the Horus Heresy sing the end of the Age of Hope, where the way of the Imperium, the only word to survive as long as it has. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, but I mean, and again, like we kind of went over a lot of those reasons in the video itself, you know, what I was saying, them losing more oversight and autonomy, or having more oversight applied onto them and losing more autonomy. I feel like that's a big reason. Again, I think the other real major reason is, like he said in the video, chaos coming in with fuckery and doing who knows what to your technology, and implying their corruption to the technology, and who knows where that could go and what that could lead to another, you know, Dark Mechanicus sects being made or created, or other demon incursions, and you could end up losing whole Forge worlds, which is a very bad thing. And then, like I said, plus, you know, resources, there's a lot of just straight up materials, just basic raw materials that some of these technologies require to be made that just aren't necessarily readily available, and they aren't able to necessarily get a hold of. I mean, like, how much raw material does it take to forge a Titan? How much raw material does it take to forge a Dreadnought? How much raw material does it take to forge any of the, you know, their battleships and cruisers and things like that? Like, you know, again, during the dark age of technology, they had the ability to, you know, like in Star Trek, manipulate matter and just, you know, create matter from energy and things like that. It wasn't as big of a problem. Also not to mention, also not mentioned a lot, but the Mechanicum did a lot more experimentation and creating stuff for Heresy, and a lot of those guys sided with Horus. Right, exactly. And so that gives them a bad name too, you know? So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a situation where a lot of that stuff is kind of really self-explanatory, you know? Chaos issues with them not wanting to be at fault and losing more autonomy to the Imperium and having more oversight enforced on them, resource issues, and then them just essentially not knowing what it is. Because again, like, you could be sitting there playing with a nuclear bomb and not know. You just think it's, you know, some little box or something like that, and you open it and then boom, a nuclear explosion and you die. Like, who knows? It could even be something even greater than that, you know? Because I mean, like, you know, what if what if it's an antimatter bomb that's able to, like, literally wipe out an entire planet? You know what I mean? You know, something that's absolutely insane, and you just think it's whatever, you know? Maybe you think it's something that could be a reactor that could generate, you know, infinite amount of power, but that explodes. And, you know, there's any number of scenarios, any number of, like, world-ending scenarios that it could be when you're dealing with technology that is advanced, that, you know, is far advanced beyond what you currently have. And I mean, let's face it, a lot of technology in the Imperium is still pretty crazy, man. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that the Imperium has access to that's pretty crazy. I mean, just the idea of the monomolecular blades, you know, like being able to create weapons that are so sharp they can cut it through atoms, basically, right? Like, that's crazy. Yeah, chaos for the longest time was worked mostly subtly and in the shadows and not overly shown, right? So I mean, there's any number of reasons why a lot of this, you know, a lot of the old technology isn't, or I should say, there's a lot of reasons why the Imperial technology isn't as high or as great as what it could be. So it is what it is, but great video by Pancreas No Work. Again, links will be down below in the description to the original video and the Pancreas No Works channel. If you do me a favor, please check those links. Give this video of his a like if you enjoyed it, and give the man a sub if you like his content. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. We're doing this reaction live from our YouTube members. We'd love to have you guys come in here and hang out. Also, if you would like to join us during these discussions as we do these reactions live, there's a join button down below. You can click on it, see if any of the YouTube membership benefits have any interest for you. Like I said, you can come in here and join these discussions as we do them. You know, we offer a lot of videos up to a week ahead of time, so you can get early access videos and get your name put at the end of the videos. Lots of other stuff. We have a Discord. You can come join some private Discord channels and join in the discussions and shenanigans we have there. So just check out those benefits, see if any of those would be interest for you. But I just appreciate you guys coming on here, taking out time from your busy day to check out the videos. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and it helps the channel grow. Really appreciate you guys. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, guys.